What do you get when you combine a predatory mortgage lender with money to burn, a bunch of B-list actors, and a collection of the greatest mid-2000s supercars? The answer is one of the worst movies of all time.
But that's the best part.
And if you like connecting the dots, a global financial crisis. Today we're talking about the 2007 film Redline, but honestly, even calling it a film is a stretch. For some of you, just hearing that name brings up the visual of comedian Eddie Griffin crashing a real Ferrari Enzo into a concrete barrier. For others, you're sitting there thinking, what the is Redline? You, my friend, are in for an education. So strap in, cue up your favorite mid-aughts alt-rock, and let's explore how a real estate mogul's dream of making the ultimate car flick turned into a financial bomb with a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, left a trail of smashed supercars and broken dreams in its wake, and might have helped tip the US economy into the Great Recession. Redline was released on April 13, 2007, as street racing was at its peak in mainstream pop culture. The Fast and Furious franchise was still about cars, and of course family. Video games like Need for Speed Underground and Midnight Club were sensations, and the street racing aesthetic was rocking the suburbs as a risque and raw cultural wave. The brains behind Redline sought to shove all of those ingredients into a blender and spit out a fortified smoothie of profits. The plot, if you can call it that, is simultaneously so convoluted and generic that we're not going to burn a bunch of time here explaining it all. If you want to torture yourself, you can read the 6-paragraph Wikipedia summary that somehow doesn't have one of those notes that says it's too excessively detailed for the subject. There's a mechanic and aspiring racer haunted by the death of her father, a high-stakes bet on a street race that goes wrong, a Vegas mob boss called the Godfather, and one final race with everything on the line. I mean, this is art.
I won, bro.
Jason!
And there was another thing that would set Redline apart: the cars. The movie would feature high-octane stunts and race sequences with real supercars like the Enzo, Koenigsegg CCX, Saleen S7, Lamborghini Diablo, SLR McLaren, and the Porsche Carrera GT, just to name a few. And where does a first-time Hollywood producer get the money for all these pricey cars? Glad you asked, because Daniel Sadek was no ordinary guy. Back then, he was flush with cash thanks to a booming real estate empire, but it was all about to come crashing down.
If I lose, trust. Broke. Soup line. Tents. No shoes.
Daniel Sadek made a fortune in the early 2000s through his company Quick Loan Funding. Like, he made a ton of money from it. His racket was giving out home loans to people with poor credits.
You can't wait, and we won't let you. Quick Loan Funding.
At one point, he had given out over $4 billion worth of loans. And if you're thinking, wait, are these subprime mortgage loans? Was Daniel Sadek a subprime lender? Yes. Yes, he was. And since we don't have the budget to get Margot Robbie in a bubble bath to explain all that, let's just say it was a bad move. Sadek, also a former car salesman as it happens, used his sizable profits to fund a lavish lifestyle. And making Redline was part of that. He came up with a story revolving around the cars he owned and cast his then-girlfriend Nadia Bjorlin as the lead. He built the film around her fast-driving character Natasha, the mechanic and wannabe racer with a tragic past. Don't you miss the 2000s?
No, thanks.
He added actors like Tim Matheson, Nathan Phillips, and the undercover brother himself, Eddie Griffin. I know these names might mean jack to some of you, but 18 years ago, that was a solid cast for a new and unproven filmmaker. The movie is a series of races and wrecks, some booty shorts, more races, and then more wrecks. Most notably, there's the race with the Enzo, the SLR McLaren, the Saleen, and the Porsche Carrera GT. The GT, a 600 horsepower V10 supercar that famously claimed the life of Paul Walker, was apparently not one of Sadek's favorites. Because even though there's some laughable CGI used for many other crashes in the film, the real Carrera GT was thrown off a cliff for the movie. Apparently there's a rumor that the car had a salvage title, but man, why? Yeah! And even after filming was complete, it couldn't help but cost more money and cause more pain. The Ferrari Enzo was brought to Irwindale Speedway for a promotional event where Eddie Griffin was supposed to drive it on course. What actually happened was he managed to understeer it into a concrete barrier, totaling the $1.3 million Halo car. The crash was covered by just about every news outlet, bringing so much attention to the film that the rumor started to circle that the car might have been crashed on purpose. Even if it was done on purpose, it didn't help the film turn into a success. And Sadek had put so much of his own money on the line that when debtors began to default on subprime mortgage loans that very same year, it was that much harder for Quick Loan to absorb the blow. Sadek's company had to buy back $29 million in loans in just 2 months, forcing him to sell his remaining cars and a penthouse in Irvine and a Las Vegas condo. He was even sued by Cartoon Network over failing to pay $800,000 in advertising fees for Redline. He owed money to banks, tax collectors, and even the founder of Oakley. I mean, what can I say? The sunglasses budget was out of control.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Daniel Sadek is absolutely one of the biggest names behind the 2008 housing crisis. He was once labeled Predator Zero, but he was also one of many people busy screwing over the economy back then, and it's probably true that quick loan funding would have collapsed on its own. But squished together through the lens of history, it does look like Redline turning into a financial disaster weakened Sadek's businesses, exposing him and leading to the implosion. On Vanity Fair's list of 100 to blame for the 2008 crisis, Daniel Sadek is named as number 86. You can't pin this directly to Redline, but the timing of the release, the many poor choices, and the film's overall quality makes it easy to think that.
Who is that guy?
That's the guy that killed Nat's father.
Redline is a prime example of the excess, greed, and hubris of the era and the people behind the 2008 crisis. It might look all glitzy and sexy, but the reality is brutal, unforgiving, and uncomfortable. And ironically, that's also the very reason we love cars from this era. The same mentality of excess that created terrible movies like Redline also created raw supercars that didn't care if you could drive them or not. The Carrera GT was a naturally aspirated V10 with a single clutch and a 6-speed. The Enzo shifted like you were pulling the trigger on a shotgun. The CCX was an 800 horsepower twin supercharged monster with so little grip that the Stig himself couldn't keep it on track. These cars had no traction control, no rev matching, no hybrid assist, no good neighbor mode, or anything like that. They were bedroom poster cars that were built to scare you if you ever got behind the wheel. Today, more and more supercars are full of driver aids and ways to make them more comfortable because practicality has actually become a factor. Back then, it just wasn't. We look back on the early 2000s as maybe the last raw era of supercars, and despite being a terrible film made by a sleazy guy, Redline is actually an amazing time capsule of that heyday and the culture that surrounded it. If you watch it through that lens with a big bucket of popcorn in your lap, you might actually have a good time. Daniel Sadek eventually filed bankruptcy, due more so to the multiple lawsuits filed against him and quick loan funding than to his failed film career. He also never produced another film after 2007. Over the last 15 years or so, he seems to have mostly stayed out of the public eye, but his life has gotten no less crazy. His house was apparently invaded by armed robbers during his weekly high-stakes poker game in 2009, just 2 weeks after his Mercedes blew up in his driveway in the middle of the night. Since then, it sounds like he's been partying it up in Beirut, although he did attempt to sue Christian von Koenigsegg in 2019 for some breach of contract. That seems about right.
Guys, what do you think of this?
There are plenty of movies out there that I will make excuses for if it's got a good car scene in it, and if you haven't seen Redline, it's certainly cheaper than a trip to Monterey Car Week. Just, I don't know, maybe watch it with the volume down or something.
Kick their ass.
I love you.
We just started a new series on the channel that's all about dropping real driving knowledge, maybe the type of knowledge that would have stopped Eddie Griffin from understeering that Enzo into a Jersey barrier. If you want to check it out, the first episode is linked right here. And as always, I'll see you next time with another story. Thanks for watching.